You're right, AJ. When you hear these guys talk only about their successes, the problem is that we don't learn that much from success.
Yeah.
It's in our failures is where we really learn.
That's actually a great way to put it, is the successes that come from failures, because you learn from every failure, and ideally you learn something that turns it into a success. So being able to show that like middle step is kind of where we're talking about, where we're going to acknowledge the failure and we're also going to talk about the success.
Welcome to the Live Truly Free podcast, where we provide fatherly guidance to entrepreneurs at any level of their journey. Hi, I'm George Black, and this is AJ. Are you ready for this week's adventure of building great companies and discovering the Live Truly Free lifestyle for entrepreneurs? Awesome. Let's get started.
So AJ, I'm super excited. This is our first podcast. Welcome to the Live Truly Free podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited for this too. I never thought I'd be recording a podcast this young, and when I first met you, I did not expect this to be how this went, but it just seems like the natural progression of things, and I think we can help some people out.
Right. So, real quick, who are you?
Yeah, my name is AJ Bishop. I'm a startup entrepreneur. I'm a college student. I just recently moved to this new state, and then I met you. And if you want to tell the people who you are as well.
So who am I? I'm George Black. I've helped lead 19 companies to $1 billion in revenue, 5x growth. And today I guide entrepreneurs to build great companies and live truly free.
So let's tell them how we met, because I think that's a pretty interesting story.
Right. So I go over to the university that's not too far from here and swim. They've got a beautiful outdoor 50-meter pool. And there's all the lanes are full. And there's two people in every lane except one. And there's this guy there. And I said, hey, can I split a lane? And AJ said, yes. I didn't know that was AJ at the time. And so I get in, and he had done, I don't know how long he'd been swimming in the pool. And I get in and I just do a quick little warm up and down. I needed to stop and fix my goggles. And I'll never forget, you looked over at me and you go, you're not even out of breath.
Yeah.
Do you remember this?
Yeah, I remember it pretty vividly. I mean, I was pretty new to the pool. I was only there because over the summer there wasn't enough students on campus for me to play full court basketball. So I was like, all right, I need something to do cardio. So the pool's open, so I hopped in there, and it's a grueling exercise.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and he's like, you're not even out of breath. And I go, well, I just did. And it was just 100 meters. I go, I'm just warming up. I'm not into the main workout yet. And so we do some laps, and then I think I make a suggestion about your kicking.
Yes. You told me my knees were too bent.
Right.
And that was like creating drag on how I was going, and it was making me work harder.
Right. So you changed your kicking. Kick more from your hips. That's the trick.
Yeah. And then from there, I think you lent me a pair of goggles as well, because I wasn't swimming with goggles at that point.
Yeah, you weren't swimming with goggles.
I'd ordered them on Amazon shortly after, because that makes a big difference. And then I saw you, another week at the pool again?
Well, I can't remember on that, but I do remember this. So what AJ didn't know was I'm involved as a entrepreneur mentor in the university's entrepreneur program, and he's a part of that program as well. And they were going to have an event for those who had
because I'm starting my company through my school's entrepreneurship competition. So part of that competition, we placed back in March, and then we're going to pitch again in October. But between then, the school's given us a lot of access to resources and networking opportunities to help all of us teams build our businesses. And so that networking event that you ended up going to was part of that program.
Right. That's where we then reconnected, and after that, we then met up at the pool again, because you were showing me your product and what you're doing, and this I don't I won't forget, because we're in the pool. We're just standing there. We should be swimming, right? Because people were wanting the lane, maybe. I don't think so. But and you said by this point you had watched some of my YouTube content, and you made an interesting observation that you are a long form content guy. And I was like, that's right. And I was very struck by that, because I thought that was very insightful. And you asked me, had I ever thought of doing a podcast?
Yeah, because that's my main form of content consumption now. It's not cable TV. It's not. I watch a little bit of YouTube, but mostly podcasts is what I'm into. And it really struck me just from watching your YouTube videos. I was like, I guess it's probably just from being like an astute observer, because I grew up in an internet generation. We know, like, evaluating content we do like secondhand. Right. And when I'm watching your YouTube videos, I was like, oh, this feels like watered down, and it feels like he's working too hard to constrain himself and in part of that he's losing a part of himself. And that was all true. That was all true.
So then you said, had I ever thought of doing a podcast, right?
Yeah. Just because that would give you that long form, right, where it's like you can go and talk for 30 minutes, you can talk for 20 minutes, or there's podcasts out here that go for 3 hours.
And I was like, yes. I've been thinking about it for like 4 or 5 years. I just never had the right format or the right person.
Yeah. And I thought, this would be really interesting. Because we were talking, like, we had basically paused our workouts, and we were just having long conversations. And I was like, oh, I could talk to this guy pretty easily. And the dynamic felt like it'd be pretty cool. And I'm like, it's interesting how I'm an entrepreneur, you guide entrepreneurs. I think there could be something there with the dynamic we have that would be interesting to put on camera and into people's ears.
So here we are, and super excited about this. What would you say is your reason for the podcast?
My biggest reason is, I think, so as I'm going through this entrepreneurial journey, I found there's not too many great resources to help entrepreneurs, like, holistically or like honestly, where it's like, we come into these problems, I don't know this, I don't know that. And I feel like by me doing this podcast with you, I'm providing a space for people to see someone who's going through their shoes. And I'm glad to be, if I seem dumb at any point in time because I don't know what's going on, I'm glad to do that, to help clarify any of the misconceptions I have or any of the confusion that I have, just for other people to witness what I'm doing and then learn from my mistakes, learn from how I think, just see me and use me as an example to help guide their own journey.
Right. So what we've discussed is, so you get a little bit of, like, as it's appropriate, some of what your questions are as you're going through certain things with your venture. But also, there's going to be times where you and I just riff on stuff for entrepreneurs. We really want you guys to leave comments, because what are you interested in? We'll take it up and we'll start talking about that, because this podcast is for you guys to glean information. And really, and this is my whole reason for doing this, is I find that you can get bits and pieces of things for entrepreneurs, but nobody, as you just said, speaks holistically. I'm interested in the whole person. And you might make $1 million, but what is the residual effect of that in the rest of your life? And there's a big effect. And if you're not ready for that, or what does it do to relationships, and all of that. So we're all about live truly free, which we're going to explore and expand over numerous episodes. But it's a lifestyle for entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And that's what resonated to me most about what I'd seen from you, is it was more focused on lifestyle and not just all the, like, kind of wonky business, like the bits and pieces that you just alluded to.
Right.
It was all these little bits and pieces you can find everywhere, but none of it kind of brought everything together. And it's like, this is not only how you build a great company, but this is how you build a company that you love working for.
Right.
It's you're not creating just a business to make money, but you're in a business because this is what you want to do with your time. This is the contribution you want to make to the world. And as you've talked, I noticed like, okay, yeah, he's trying to tie everything together, and I felt like this would be a great opportunity to do so.
Yeah, so we recognize clearly if you're going to live truly free, you need a successful company, right?
Yeah.
So we're definitely help you with that, okay? But we're not going to stop with that. But there's more that we have for you guys, and it's what I'd like to describe as fatherly guidance for entrepreneurs. And you've experienced some of that, right?
Through the conversations I've had with you, I've definitely felt that. And some of the stories you shared with me have been like pretty intriguing too. The one that resonates most with me is that Baxter's Pinnacle one. If you want to share briefly what that was.
So the Baxter's Pinnacle story is a major event in my life. And Baxter's Pinnacle is an actual column of rock. It's 400 feet high. It's 5 pitches of rope. If you climb, it's got a climbing difficulty of 5.10, which is pretty strong. And so I took my 14-year-old son, and we had done a little bit of rock climbing out there. And so this was an all-day deal. Well, we did the first 4 pitches just fine. The 5th pitch, and it's the greatest technical difficulty of them all, it's a flat piece of rock, and there's a little footpath right to it, and there's a rock that sits right in front of it. And so we're on one length of rope. The guide has already gone up. He made it look super easy. My son is sitting he's at the end of the rope, so he's sitting on the rock watching me. Now, what you have to do is you have to swing out, and there's this bump on the rock that you put your foot on. And that bump this is my book, is got about as much bump as the front of this book cover does.
Yeah.
I'm like, what bump? And there's a little wire thing to grab onto and swing out, put your foot on the bump, and then you go out further than your wingspan and grab a little crack. And then you swing yourself up, and up you go. Just like that.
That sounds very difficult.
And so when you swing out to put your foot on the bump, and you look down, so hundreds of feet below you are the tops of pine trees. And these are really tall pine trees, okay? So I do this, and I immediately just slam right into the rock wall. And I did this like 9 or 10 times. And my hands are cramping and stuff like that. And by the way, that's my count. Others counts a little higher, like 13, 14, I'm not sure. And in fact, the guide at one point shouted down, hey, there's a back way. But I kept doing it. I said, I'm not going to do it the back way. I'm going to make this thing work. And so then what happened was, on one of those times, I got my foot on the bump. I mean, it was just like it all came together, got my hand in the crack, swung up, boom, boom, got up over where I needed to go. The rest of it wasn't too hard. And I made it all the way up. And I'm thinking, how is my son going to do this? Because he's 14, so he's not as tall as I am, and so he doesn't have the wingspan to be able to grab like I do. Here's the amazing thing. He did it in, I think, 3 or 4 tries.
Well,
and I'm like, how is that possible? And so we're up on top of this pinnacle, and I'm kind of just enjoying the view and everything. And it's one of those divine kind of moments, and this inspiring thought hit me, and it was this, that I had shown my son 14 times or 13 times how to fail and then to find success. And in that process, he had watched me all 14 times and saw exactly what I did. So he already knew. And so he didn't have to fail 14 times. He only failed a few times and did it actually 4 times faster than I did and made it up. And that's what I want for you guys, is to learn from my failures. So I'm going to be transparent as possible with my failures and let you see those so that you can swing up the rope, get to the top much faster than I did.
And I feel like that's a unique perspective that we can talk through compared to other podcasts and information you see in the space. Because I feel, especially in the business information space online, it's all just guys beating their chest about how much money they've made or all the success they've had, what they've done to do this and done that and all that. But there's not as much emphasis on accepting their failures and just being transparent about them so that other people can learn from those failures and avoid those failures. Yeah,
you've been around me enough now, AJ. You know, I'm like, I live in Reelsville. I mean, it's like, and what's really happening is important. And so we're not going to pretend, we're not going to sugarcoat. We're just going to say, look, this is real. And I've seen a lot. You're right, AJ. When you hear these guys talk only about their successes, the problem is that we don't learn that much from success.
Yeah.
It's in our failures is where we really learn. And that's what we're going to get into, is not so much the failures, but we're going to get into what are the successes coming out of those failures.
Yeah, that's actually a great way to put it, is the successes that come from failures, because you learn from every failure, and ideally you learn something that turns it into a success. So being able to show that like middle step is kind of where we're talking about, where we're going to acknowledge the failure and we're also going to talk about the success. So I was just interested so people can get a little bit more insight onto why, I guess, like I'm seeking your advice.
Right.
What's kind of been some of those successes that you've learned from failures, or maybe just a couple things that you've used when guiding companies that you think are very general that somebody who just has listened to our introduction here can take away from it today?
One of the things that I did, so in guiding these companies, I've guided entrepreneurs, but also in then leading these other companies, I thought, what's the pattern here? And I was challenged with this thought that I have a system. And I was like, I don't have a system. I just go in there and I do it. Mm-hmm. But I actually have a very clear system. And part of that's in my book, but it really is, there's two components to it. One is you've got to understand your numbers. And the other is you've got to know your direction. And all of this is to get to, so what's the objective? The objective is to create sustainable and long-term profitable growth.
Yeah.
And so if you consider this like a triangle, okay? Mm-hmm. In one corner, you've got numbers. In one corner, you got direction. And then as you go up the triangle, you've got, okay, making decisions from your numbers
that are in line with your direction.
Well, that's the other line of the triangle.
Okay.
And those are strategies to actions based on where your direction is.
Got it. And so you're kind of telling startup entrepreneurs who are leading their companies, those are kind of the two things those are the two most important things. Like, I know from my experience, it's very easy to get down in the weeds of, I've got a million tasks that have to be done, but that would be more on the tactical level. Whereas an entrepreneur, as the leader of the company, you have to make sure most of your effort is spent on what are the numbers saying and and then the actions necessary to drive better numbers, both of which are moving in line towards the direction that you want to go.
Well, I'm not saying this just to startup entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I'm saying this to every single one of you guys. I don't care if you've been an entrepreneur for 10 minutes or 100 years. If these two factors aren't in your, basically, if you're not running on those two rails, and I know guys 40 years in the business, they don't understand their numbers and they don't make decisions based on the numbers, or if they do, they're making them on the wrong number.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we got money in the bank. No, that's not a number. That is that's not good analytics. I mean, so you don't understand what's going on. If you think money in the bank is an indicator, it is an indicator of something. But if you don't understand what it really could be telling you, it could be a good indicator or a bad indicator or both at the same time. So here's the thing, is that it's not, this is a top level thing. So in other words, as the entrepreneur, you need to know where your company's direction is.
Yeah.
And you have to have your strategies. Now, there's another part to this. And this is the secret to what I do. And it's the secret to my strategic process in my book. And that is, it's strategy sourced in your passions.
Yeah.
Because if it's not sourced in your passions, then you're just kind of showing up to work. You're working for yourself like you're working for somebody else. And when the headwinds hit, when the tough times come, man, you've got to have passion for what you're doing or you will not make it.
Yeah. And in those past couple sentences, you said a lot of things that I think we've already mapped out a couple episodes that we want to do and talk through that.
Right.
And you just hit on a bunch of things that we're going to talk to our viewers about and teaching them or telling them how we believe you can do these things. Because entrepreneurship you don't want to just get yourself working for this company like you would work for anybody else. You're trying to build a life around what you love doing and creating the value and the impact that you want to create. And yeah, it was good that you corrected me too, that it's not just for, it doesn't matter where you are in the entrepreneurial stage.
Right.
It's for everyone, because even if you're 50 years into a venture that you started 50 years ago,
right,
you can reconfigure how you're thinking about things to live more truly free.
Here's the thing. As you're talking, and I'm just thinking about all these different companies I've helped lead and people I've worked with, and I watch the ones who don't use this formula. Their lives could be so much easier, so much less stress. Now, they may know they're going to run out of money, but they at least know there's no surprises. They know what's happening, and they've got clear direction, and they've got everybody on the same page. It just, when the companies are doing that, I mean, it is amazing. And nothing's perfect in this world, I understand, but you can sure bring it up a notch or two. Yeah. And so my heart really, honestly, is to share stuff like this and unpack it in a deep way so that your lives can be easier, more full, more complete.
And that's also why I'm here. I want people to learn from me, and I want these past 8 months that I've been starting my company have been the best adventure I've ever been on. And I want to share my experiences with people so that they can also realize a great adventure that lies ahead of them. And that kind of
maybe save a few mistakes, right?
And save a few mistakes, ideally. And that kind of leads me to how we were talking about, and I've read your book. There's a great quote in the book if you'd want to share it with the audience, because I think that's I think that quote is the perfect summary for what we're trying to do with this podcast.
Yeah. So at one point, this is early in the book. Here's the quote: "Anyone with a vision for anything is an entrepreneur." And this is actually my personal definition of an entrepreneur. So what that means is like, have you ever been in a situation where you're in line for something and you're like looking at this thing going like, there's such a better way this could be done.
Yeah, I mean, I've had this experience in line. I'm an entrepreneur. I have that entrepreneurial mindset.
Right, so you think it all the time.
Yeah,
right.
But we were just having that experience with the Amber Alert that went off, and it was all obnoxious, and it's 8 lines of text, and it's from some middle of nowhere town that neither of us are going to be ever in, probably.
Is there a better way to do it?
Oh yeah, we were talking about that too. But I'll save you guys the nerdy details. But
yeah, please save us. But that's the thing. And I think most people think that way, and it doesn't mean you're an entrepreneur. What it means, you have an entrepreneurial mindset. And so and you start to get a vision for something. Now, here's the difference. And it's in the second part of the quote. Life becomes a real adventure for those who act on their vision and seize opportunity. So those of us that grab it, whether it's a part-time hobby gig that we're going to try to monetize our passion and see if we can make a living at it, to a full-time business, lots of employees, one employee, solopreneur, digital nomad, creator, whoever, whatever. That's who we're here for.
Yeah. We're here for anyone with that entrepreneurial mindset who's willing to take the action to make it happen.
Yeah. So there's tons of definitions out there, right, on who's an entrepreneur. Mine's a very broad one because I think most people are entrepreneurs. I think this podcast is for most everybody, frankly. And I think you're going to have a lot of fun with us. Enjoy our journey as we figure life out as we go along. And we want you to be a part of this journey with your comments, with your questions, topics, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited to be on this journey with you and with our audience to show them how you can build a holistic life around entrepreneurship, one that's fulfilling, rewarding, exciting, and one that's full of joy. That's what I'm excited for, and we're going to share that with our audience here.
Yeah, so I just want to say we're ambitious. We want to create a community of entrepreneurs through this podcast and do something that has not been done before. And so we've also got this on YouTube as well. And stay tuned for the next episode. We can't wait to share it with you. So for more conversations like this one between me and AJ, click this video. I know you're going to love it. And until next time, may you live truly free.